Good afternoon. Welcome back to Discovering Truth. Today I want to talk on the topic of the rapture, and I'm going to title this The Rapture versus the Resurrection. I do not believe there's a rapture. I believe that there's only a resurrection. So the rapture teaching, if you don't know, is that the Jesus Messiah is going to come. He's going to take away the church, take away all the Christians, and of course, whatever they were driving or riding in or moving along it, those things are going to just crash because no one's operating them now. It's kind of crazy. All the Left Behind books and the movies were about that. Plus, there were other Left Behind type movies that were about that. But anyway, Jesus is just going to take up all of the Christians, and then the world's going to have 7 years of chaos where Antichrist comes and, kills everybody and destroys everyone, and it's just not in the Bible anywhere. Okay, there is a time when the Christians will be taken up. Well, the believers in Messiah will be taken up, but we don't go to heaven for 7 years and all of that. So I'll end up dispelling that in a minute, and showing where all of the verses that people take as being for the rapture are actually verses talking about the resurrection. And it's not two separate events, it's one event at the second coming of Jesus. So I'm going to read their main verse first, and show how that's not what they think it is, and then I'll go into getting rid of the 7-year belief that separates the two, and then we can go on to all the other verses to show it's a resurrection and not a rapture first, 7 years, and then a resurrection. So this is actually the study. Someone taught me this, a guy named Michael Pitts, back in, I don't even remember how long ago it was, but he was teaching there was no rapture. So a lot of these verses I'm going to use are coming from him. And I struggled with that because I was a huge Left Behind guy, and so I tried everything I could to disprove it, and I couldn't do it, and that made me question the church at that point. I'm like, well, if they're wrong about the rapture, what else could they be wrong about? And that actually started me on my whole journey of discovering truth, and I'm not where I used to be. I'm hoping you won't stay where you are now either. I hope we'll all continue to grow in truth, including myself, because I don't know everything. That's why I want you to put things in the comments. Maybe you can teach me something back, We can iron sharpen iron, right? All right, so 1 Thessalonians 4, I'm going to go all the way back to verse 13. It says, "Now, brothers, we want you to know the truth about those who have died. Otherwise, you might become sad the way other people do, who have nothing to hope for. For since we believe that Yahushua Jesus died and rose again, we also believe that in the same way Elohim God, through Yahushua Jesus, will take with him those who have died. When we say this, we base it on Yahuwah, the Lord's own word. We who remain alive, when Yahuwah comes, the Lord comes, will certainly not take precedence over those who have died. For Yahuwah, the Lord, himself will come down from heaven with a rousing cry, with a call from one of the ruling angels, the archangels, and with Elohim, God's shofar, or trumpet. Those who died united with the Messiah, or Christ, will be the first to rise. Then we who are left, still alive, will be caught up with them in the clouds to meet Yahuwah, the Lord, in the air. And thus we will always be with Yahuwah, the Lord. So encourage each other with these words." So first off, a lot of people believe that the Christians will be taken up silently. No one's going to know, and they just disappeared. All of a sudden, everyone's going to be looking around. Where's my loved ones? So it says it's with a rousing cry. It says the ruling angels are coming. It says it's with Elohim shofar, his trumpet. This is going to be a loud event. Everyone's going to know. Remember the verses that say, every eye shall see him? Yeah, every eye's going to see him because they're all going to be looking up going, what's that noise? So it's not a quiet thing. And to me, what I'm going to show is this is just the resurrection. Jesus comes back. we hear all this noise, his angels are with him, and we are caught up to meet him in the air. Okay? That's what the resurrection is. So I'm going to dispel the whole 7-year thing real quick by going to Daniel, because that's where it comes from. I don't know if people know that. Daniel 9. And I'm not sure. I think it's in the 20s. Let's see. So Daniel gets a vision. Here we go. Starting in verse 24. Daniel gets a vision of, or I'm not sure if it's a vision or an angel comes to talk to him. Therefore, looking at, yeah. So an angel's telling him and describing the visions that he's getting. So he says 70 weeks. Now, in Bible prophecy, a day is a year. So a week would be 7 years. So 70 weeks would be 70 times 7 years, or 490 years. Okay? So 70 weeks, or 490 years, have been decreed for your people and for your holy city, for putting an end to the transgression, for making an end to sin, for forgiving iniquity, for bringing in everlasting justice, and for setting the seal on vision and prophet, and for anointing the especially holy place, the most holy place, the temple. Those are all things Jesus did, okay? So when Yahushua Jesus came, he put an end to sin. Now, do we still sin? Yes, but it was all paid for, okay? He forgave iniquity. He brought in everlasting righteousness because sin is already dealt with. And he anointed the most holy place because he was there. The Father, in human form, came down and stood in the holy place. That's how he anointed, one of the ways he anointed it. So verse 25, know therefore and discern that 7 weeks of years. So there's a verse that's, remember when Jesus said to the Pharisees, destroy this temple and I'll rebuild it in 3 years. And they said, it's taken us 49 years to build this temple. Yeah. So this is what this is. Know therefore and discern that 7 weeks, 7 times 7, 49 years, will elapse between the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. So it took 49 years to build Jerusalem and the temple, okay? Until an anointed prince comes, that's Messiah. It will remain built for 62 weeks of years. So 62 times 7 is like 400 and, 400 and some years. But anyway, that's how long between when they built the temple until Messiah came. So with open spaces and moats, but these will be troubled times. So when they were rebuilding the temple in Ezra's day, people were fighting against them. So it says they had to have a sword in one hand and they were building the temple with the other hand, keeping themselves protected while trying to build the wall in the temple. So then after that 62 weeks, Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. The people of the prince yet to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, but his end will come with the flood, and desolations are decreed until the war is over. So, Messiah after the 62 weeks. So you got the first 7 weeks, the 49 years, built the temple. Then after that, you got 62 weeks. 62 plus 7 is 69 weeks, right? Until Messiah comes and is cut off, okay? And then later on, there'll be a prince that's going to come and destroy the temple. And that's, I think, Nero or one of the Roman leaders. So then verse 27, which is where a lot of Christians take a left turn, and they shouldn't. So this was talking about Messiah is going to come, right? He will make a strong covenant with leaders for 1 week. Now, some translation says he will make a covenant with many for 1 week. And everyone automatically says, whoever makes the covenant with Israel. Doesn't say Israel. It says many. It says, with leaders, with people. Guess who many is? All the people that he forgave. Those are the many that he's making a covenant with. It's called the new covenant, is it not? Well, who's the new covenant with? Him and us. Us that believe on him, that accept his sacrifice. That's who he's making the covenant with. And then For half of the week he will put a stop to the sacrifices and grain offerings. On a wing of detestable things, the desolator will come and continue until the already decreed destruction is poured out on the desolator. So this is what it's saying. It said he'll make a covenant for 1 week, and in the middle of that week he'll be cut off. How long was Jesus' ministry? Yahushua Jesus, they say his ministry was 3.5 years. Oh, is that half of a week? If a week is 7 years, isn't 3.5 years half of a week? Yahushua Jesus makes the covenant with us, with many, not with Israel. I mean, Israel is included if they accept him, but it wasn't just Israel. It doesn't even say Israel in that verse at all, okay? Halfway through, he's cut off. Didn't it just say in the verse before that the Messiah will be cut off? Yeah. Why? Because he was killed. His death put an end to the requirement of the sacrifices. Now, they still did them. We should still be doing them today if we had a temple. The reason we do them, though, is for a different reason. Remember, Jesus said that do this in remembrance of me, talking about the Passover, what people try to call the Last Supper, or the communion, which is not in the Bible. But what he did was, he says, yes, we still do the Passover, but we do it unto me now. We still do the sacrifices, but we do them unto him now. Okay? Which was what they were for to begin with anyway. They were always to the Father. The Father came down in human form, died for our sins. We do them unto what he did for us. They're all a representation. They're all a type or typology or symbolism of what he did. All of them sacrifices can be related to Jesus' life. And that's a whole nother study. All right. So the 7 weeks, so 7 years, or 49 years, the first 7 weeks, built the temple. The next 62 weeks leads up, which is 483. 483 years leads up to Messiah coming. There's 1 week left. Christians want to take that week and throw it in the end of time. Nothing in the context of this says to do that. It says that he makes a covenant for 1 week. Halfway through that week, Jesus makes a covenant for 1 week. Halfway through that week, he gets cut off. The 70 weeks of Daniel is done with Jesus. It has nothing to do with 7 years floating around at the end of time. Nowhere in Revelation will you find 7 years. You'll find 30. You'll find a time times and half a time, which is 3.5 years. You'll find a 3.5 year period. Speaks of that. And then there's the months one. How many months is that? 36 months? No. 42 months, sorry. You'll find the 42 months in Revelations. 3.5 year periods. Are they all one 3.5 year period? Not positive. Are they 3 or 4 different periods of 3.5 years? So is it 10.5 year period? I don't know. I haven't studied Revelation enough to know whether they're combined, whether they overlap, any of that. But they never talk about a 7 year period anywhere in Revelation. It's all taken from Daniel and it's taken out of context. All right. So now let's move on to the rest of the verses that show the resurrection that Christians wrongly take as the rapture. Again, these are from maybe I didn't say it. These are from a website that I got that teaches the rapture. These are all verses they said were for the rapture. Not Daniel, but all the ones I'm going to share now. So 1 Thessalonians 5. So we're going to go back to Thessalonians. Come on, 1 Thessalonians 5. Let's go there. We're going to read 1 through 8. It says, "But you have no need to have anything written to you, brothers, about the times and dates when this will happen." Talking about the second coming. Why don't they need to know? Why don't they need anyone to write to them? Because we will know when. Okay? If we understand the Old Testament, you Christians really need to start reading and understanding the Old Testament. It opens up the New Testament and gives it a whole new meaning. So anyway, but Paul's telling them, you Thessalonians don't have any need for me to write to you or tell you about dates and stuff and when stuff will happen. Because you yourselves well know that the day of Yahuwah will come like a thief in the night. Now, that phrase, a thief in the night, that is a Hebrew idiom. So in English, we have different sayings. We have different phrases that mean stuff. Paint the town red. That means you're going to go out and have a good time. It doesn't mean we're going around painting houses and buildings red, okay? There's it's just a way of saying things. The thief in the night, what that meant was, so they always had to make sure that the altar never the flames never stopped, okay? And to do that, they would have a person that would watch it all during the night. So if you had somebody new or someone that wasn't doing a good job, the high priest or one of the priests would come around. They would take a coal off of the altar that they're supposed to be watching, that the other guy's supposed to be watching, and they would put it on their linen garments, which would just catch on fire super quick. And that person was called the thief in the night because they stole a coal off the altar to wake you up with fire. Okay? So it was not some, hey, we don't know when anything's going to happen. No, they knew they were looking for the day of Yahuwah, and they were going to stay aware so that he didn't come back like a thief in the night when we're not expecting him. That's all that means, okay? It doesn't mean he's secretly taking things. Besides, the thief takes things that aren't theirs, right? If Yahushua Jesus coming back for us, we're his. He's not going to come, if he comes back for anything, he's taking people that aren't his so he can destroy them. All right, verse 3. When people are saying everything is so peaceful and secure, which we've never had, then destruction will suddenly come upon them, the way labor pains come upon a pregnant woman, and there is no way they will escape. But you, brothers, are not... Crap, I gotta stop this. I'll pause it. Okay, I think I'm back on. You guys probably didn't see any lapse of time, but I ended up getting a phone call. And so, sorry about saying crap. So, I'm human. Anyway, where was I? We're going to 1 Thessalonians 5, 1 through 8. I was reading about the thief in the night. So I'm going to go on to verse 4. It says, but you, brothers, are not in the dark, so that the day should take you by surprise like a thief. Why are they not in the dark? I thought Jesus said, no man knows the day or hour, not even the angels, nor him. The reason that he's saying this, okay, so it's always been known in Judaism and based on the Old Testament that he is going to come on the Feast of Trumpets, okay? Now, they weren't expecting his first coming. They were expecting only the second coming. And Messiah to show up one day and start destroying the Romans is what they were expecting. But it was always expected that he would show up on the Feast of Trumpets. That's why we read in Thessalonians about the trumpets. All throughout, if you read the Bible, that's what it's talking about. So all of the feasts have a point and have a purpose and they have a meaning, except for the Feast of Trumpets. Guess what you do on that day? Blow trumpets. That's it. That's what it... And it was called, and it's the only holiday that's on the first of the month. Well, when you're determining your month based on the moon, because that's what they would do is look at the moon, that's how they would figure it out. So there might be a day when you're not real sure. Was it the first of the month? Is tomorrow the first of the month? Oh, it's cloudy. I can't see the moon to check for the sliver, that kind of stuff. So, or for the new moon going in, when you can't see it. And when you're expecting it to show back up. It was called the day that no one knows. That was another Hebrew idiom. The day that no one knows. That's what Jesus was talking about. Of course the Father knows. Now, we don't know which year it's going to be. We have no idea what year that the second coming was going to be. But we do know that it's going to be on that day. So if the Feast of Trumpets comes and goes and Messiah didn't return, well, it's not this year, but it might be next year. That's the part we don't know. But we can pay attention to what's going on, read the signs of the times, and pay attention to that and know when it's getting close that he might be showing up. And we can be ready. That's what these verses are talking about. For you are all people who belong to the light, who belong to the day. We don't belong to the night or the darkness. So let's not be asleep like the rest are. On the contrary, let us stay alert and sober. People who sleep, sleep at night, and people who get drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, let us stay sober, putting on trust and love as a breastplate and the hope of being delivered as a helmet. So, so the thief in the night, just to dispel that, had to do with the priest that was stealing the coal to wake up the guy that was sleeping, supposed to be watching the fire. And we can know the day because it's called the day that no one knows. It's called, which is what Jesus was talking about. Okay, sometimes translations don't reiterate; they don't convey the same thing that you're wanting it to, because of the translations from Hebrew or Greek to English. It just happens. Any language you can get have that same thing with. All right, so let's go to the next one. John 14:3. Actually, I'm going to skip John for a second because I want to go back to that. Let's go to Mark 32. That's what we were just talking about. Mark 13:32, sorry. And 32, right there. All right, he says, however, let's read up a little bit so that we get the context. Now let the fig tree teach you its lesson. When its branches begin to sprout and leaves appear, you know that summer is approaching. In the same way, when you see all these things happening, you are to know that the time is near, right at the door. That's what I'm saying. We can know when it's close. Yes, I tell you that this people will certainly not pass away before all these things happen. That goes in the Satan Little Season category. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words, what were his words? The Torah, the Old Testament. There's no New Testament at this point. All of his words, because he's God, right? He's the creator. His words are the Torah, the law of Moses. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will certainly not pass away. However, when that day and hour will come, no one knows. Not the angels in heaven, not the Son, just the Father. Again, it's the day that no one knows. That's what it's called. And it's that day, but we don't know when it's going to be. Okay? And Jesus, as the Son, when he was human flesh, he had to limit himself to not know everything. Thus, only the Father would know when he was going to return at that point. You don't think he's in heaven now and doesn't know when he's coming back? I think he knows. It says, stay alert, be on your guard, for you do not know when the time will come. All right. So that dispels the day or hour thing. Revelation 3. So a lot of Christians will say, well, the rapture's going to happen, so he'll keep us away from bad stuff because of this verse here. So he's talking to one of the churches, one of the 7 churches, and this is a letter that John is sending. So to this particular church, let's see, it's verse 10. He says to him in this part, he says, because you did obey my message about persevering, I will keep you from the time of trial coming upon the whole world to put the people living on earth to the test. Okay, so they take this and they take, yep, he's going to take us away to heaven. It doesn't say that. He's going to keep us from a time of trial, a time of probably tribulation. Okay, did he do that before in the past without taking people off planet Earth? Yeah, he did it in Egypt. If you read Revelation, a lot of the plagues and a lot of the bad things in Revelation are very similar to the plagues of Egypt and the Exodus. You got to relate Scripture with Scripture so that and the reason they do that is so the people would know what's going on. They're like, oh, there's a plague of frogs. I remember when there was a plague of frogs. I wonder if those connect. And they usually do. So during that period, during all the plagues, certain plagues hit Israel and hit the Egyptians. But then there were other plagues that only hit the Egyptians. And he kept them from a time of trial. Okay? They didn't have to go through all of the things that the Egyptians had to go through. Some of them, yeah. Some of the stuff we have to go through. Same as the non-believers. But there's certain things that he protects us from, and he will at a second coming also, or just before then. So this doesn't say anything about being taken away to heaven. We read too much into the Bible. We need to just read what the Bible says. Let it tell us what it says. All right, Matthew 24. Again, this is another. Matthew 24 is a great chapter if you're studying Satan's little season. Gives a lot of time words, letting you know when things are going to take place. So we're going to start in verse 30 and 31. Matthew 24, verse 30. It says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky." Oh, stupid bug. "All the tribes of the land will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with tremendous power and glory." How is that we're secretly taken up to heaven? No, the people of the earth are going to see Jesus showing up. That's the second coming. Coming in the clouds of heaven with tremendous power and glory. He will send out his angels with a great shofar. Isn't that the same thing we heard in 1 Thessalonians? He'll send out his angels to the great trumpet, and they will gather together his chosen people from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And again, everyone's seeing this. So that's what's going to happen. He is going to gather us, but it's the resurrection. It's not some secret thing that happens 7 years before he returns. All right. Philippians 3, 20 and 21. So, 20 says, "But we are citizens of heaven, and it is from there that we expect a deliverer, Yahuwah the Lord, Yahushua the Messiah. He will change the bodies we have in this humble state and make them like his glorious body, using the power which enables him to bring everything under his control." So they're like, "Oh, see, we're citizens of heaven." Okay, we're under the headship of heaven. Yeah, we're and because you're a citizen of someplace doesn't mean you're a resident. There's a difference, okay? I'm a citizen of the United States of America, but I'm a resident of Michigan. I'm not a citizen of Michigan. I'm a resident of Michigan. That's where I live. We can be a citizen of heaven because he's the government over us and still live on the earth, okay? And I'm going to show other verses that show we stay here on the earth anyway. So being a citizen of heaven doesn't mean we go directly to heaven. That's where our deliverer is coming from. That's where our Messiah is coming from. But then it does say that we're going to be getting our glorious body, right? Which 1 Corinthians talks about. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But John, you know what? Yeah, let's go to that for next. Let's do the glorified body verses. So Daniel 12, 1 through 2 is one of them. A lot of stuff in Daniel. Daniel 12 says, "When that time comes, Michael, the great prince who champions your people, will come up, and there will be a time of distress unparalleled between the time they became a nation and that moment. At that time, your people will be delivered, everyone whose name is found in the book. Many of those sleeping in the dust of the earth will awaken, some to everlasting life and some to everlasting shame and abhorrence. But those who can discern will shine like the brightness of the heaven's dome, the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever." So the dead, the people that are dead at Jesus' return, they're going to wake up. Some to everlasting life, some to shame and contempt and abhorrence. 1 Corinthians 15. Verses, I'm going to go all the way to verse 50. 51. Is that button there? All right. It says, "Look, I will tell you a secret. Not all of us will die, but we will all be changed." So Daniel just said that those that are died are going to be resurrected. Philippians says that we're going to get our glorified bodies. This is showing the combination of the two. It will take but a moment, the blink of an eye, at the final shofar or trumpet. For the shofar or trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised to live forever, and we too will be changed. For this material, which can must be clothed with imperishability. This which is mortal, don't have a immortal soul. We are mortal. Must be clothed with immortality. When what decays puts on imperishability, and what is mortal puts on immortality, then this passage in the Tanakh, the Old Testament, will be fulfilled. Death is swallowed up in victory. Death, where is your victory? Death, where is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and sin draws its power from the law, meaning when we break it. But thanks be to Elohim God, who gives us the victory through Yahushua, our Lord Jesus, the Messiah, the Christ. So, when Jesus returns, the dead are raised to life, get glorified bodies. We who are alive are raised, basically. We're not dead, but we're given our glorified bodies. And in Thessalonians, it says we're caught up in the air, right? Why would we be caught up in the air? Let me go to Revelation. You know what? I'm not real sure what verse this is in. I think it's 19. Let me check. 1 second, please. All right. So I believe this is the right area. So it's talking about Jesus' second coming. And it says, I saw heaven open, and there before me was a white horse. Sitting on it was the one called Faithful and True, and it is in righteousness that he passes judgment and goes to battle. His eyes were like a fiery flame, and on his head were many royal crowns. And he had a name written which no one knew but himself. He was wearing a robe that had been soaked in blood, and the name by which he is called is the word of Elohim, the word of God. The armies of heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and pure, were following him on white horses. And out of his mouth comes a sharp sword, with which to strike down nations. He will rule them with a staff of iron. It is he who treads the winepress, from which flows the wine of the furious rage of Yahuwah Elohim, God of heaven's armies. And his robe, and on his thigh he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Then I saw an angel standing. Let's see. Let me go down a little bit further. So I wanted to show it's his return. And yeah. Then I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried out in a loud voice to all the birds that fly about in mid-heaven, come, gather together for the great feast Elohim God is giving, to eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of generals, the flesh of important men, the flesh of horses and their riders, and the flesh of all kinds of people, free and slaves, small and great. I saw the beast and the kings of the earth, and the beast is just the system, kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to do battle with the rider and the horse and his army. But the beast was taken captive, and with it the false prophet, who in its presence had done the miracles which he had used to deceive those who had received the mark of the beast, which is Sunday worship. We can talk about that on a video too. And those who had worshipped his image. The beast and the false prophet were both thrown alive into the lake of fire, which burns with sulfur. The rest were killed with the sword that goes out of the mouth of the rider on the horse, and all the birds gorged themselves in their flesh. There is a verse I was thinking of, not this one, but this works well for what I was wanting to do, that says that when he destroys the wicked, that blood comes up to the bridle of the horse. There's so much blood. But this shows the same thing. When he comes back, he's destroying the wicked. So he returns. He raises the dead. He raises us up into the air with them. We all get our glorified bodies, and he destroys all the wicked, which is why he doesn't want us sitting on the earth. If he's destroying all the wicked, we're in the air, not getting hurt. Okay? That's how the resurrection goes. That's what Thessalonians is talking about, that we're caught up in the air. And it does say the air. It doesn't say we go to heaven. It says we're caught up in the air. There's a difference between being in the air and the third heaven where Father's throne is. So that's why we're in the air, so that he doesn't destroy us with all the wicked. All right, next we're going to go to the ones where it says, yeah, but what about the verses one is taken? All right, Luke 17. Luke 17. This is right now. This is one of my longest videos. Verse 34. And this is in a couple different places in the Good News, it's the Gospels. He says, I tell you, on that night there will be two people in one bed. One will be taken and the other left behind. There will be two women grinding grain together. One will be taken and the other left behind. So the question is who's taken and who is left behind, right? So, and then notice he says the next one. He says, the next verse, 37, he says, they asked him, where, Yahuwah? Where, Lord? He answered, wherever there's a dead body, that's where the vultures gather. Some translations say eagles, but regardless, he's talking about dead bodies. So which one's taken and which one's left? Who's the one that becomes the dead body that we just read in Revelation, right? Your Thessalonians verse explains that just perfect. Thessalonians 4:17. So many people miss this. No, not 3:4. Sorry. It gave me the wrong chapter. All right. 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 17. So I'll go to 16 for context. For Yahuwah the Lord himself will come down from heaven with the rousing cry, with the call from one of the royal ruling angels, and with Elohim God's shofar, trumpet. Those who died united with the Messiah shall be the first to rise. Then we who are left. You want to be left behind. You don't want to be one that is killed by the Messiah. You want to be one that's left behind. That are still alive will be caught up with them in the clouds to meet Yahuwah in the air, not the third heaven. And then think about who was taken and who was left with Noah's flood. Doesn't Yahushua Jesus say that it, just as it is in the days of Noah, so it'll be at the coming of the Son of Man? And of course, people use that for the coming of the Son of Man and then say, no, the Son of Man comes 7 years after that. But Noah was the one that was left. Everyone else was destroyed. Right? And there's a whole chapter given to this whole concept. It's Psalms 37. And I'm going to read several of the verses in here, showing that it's the wicked that are taken, not the righteous. So Psalm 37. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's there's like 38, 40 verses, something like that. But I'm going to go through the ones that show what I'm trying to show you. So verse 2. Verse 1. Don't be upset by evildoers or envious of those who do wrong, for soon they will wither like grass and fade like the greens in the fields. Verse 9. For evildoers will be cut off, but those hoping in Yahuwah, the Lord, will inherit the land. We're going to get the land afterwards. He's not taking us to heaven. Verse 10. Soon the wicked will be no more. You will look for his place, and he won't be there. Doesn't that sound the exact opposite for all the rapture-ready people? For the wicked will perish. Yahuwah's enemies will be like sheep fat, ending up as smoke, vanished, finished. Verse 28. For Yahuwah loves justice and will not abandon his faithful. They will preserved forever, but the descendants of the wicked will be cut off. Doesn't that sound like what the angels were doing in that Revelation 19? Put your hope in Yahuwah. Keep to his way, and he will raise you up to inherit the land, not take you to heaven. When the wicked are cut off, you will see it. Verse 35 and 36. I have seen a wicked man wielding great power, flourishing like a shade tree in its native soil. But I passed by again, and he was no longer there. I looked for him, but he could not be found. In verse 38. But transgressors will all be destroyed. The posterity of the wicked will be cut off. So they're the ones vanishing. They're the ones being destroyed. They're the ones that be like, where'd that mean guy go? Okay? Father's in you, Jesus, he's destroying all of them in his return. All right, Mark 13. Another proof that this is not some secret thing. Mark 13, 24 through 27. All right. It says, in those days, after that trouble, the sun will grow dark, the moon will stop shining, the stars will fall from the sky, flat earth stuff, all the stars falling from the sky to earth. If our sun is way bigger than the earth, how are the stars going to fall? They're a lot smaller and a lot closer. Anyway, side topic. Little rant. So the stars will fall from the sky and the powers in heaven will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with tremendous power and glory. He will send out his angels and gather together his chosen people from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. He's bringing them all together. Why? Bringing us up in the sky in the clouds so that we're not destroyed when he comes with all of his angels to destroy the wicked. The sun's going to grow dark. We're not even going to see it. The moon's going to stop shining. The stars are going to fall. You think no one's going to notice and we're going to live for 7 years after that? No, not even close. Everyone's going to see the Father or Jesus coming back. Revelation 20. Let's see. Verses 2 through 5. I'll just read one. Next I saw an angel coming down from heaven who had the key to the abyss and the great chain in his hand. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who was the devil and Satan, the adversary, and chained him up for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss, locked it, and sealed it over him, so that he could not deceive the nations any more until the 1,000 years were over. So I don't even need to read any further. This is all that happens when Jesus returns. He locks up Satan. Okay? So how is Satan going to be here ruling for 7 years with the Antichrist if he's all locked up? All right. And then we're going to go to, I believe, the parable that changes you can't disagree with this one. You can't prove the rapture with this at all. Matthew 13. This is what changed everything for me. We're going to start in verse 24. And there we go. Matthew 13, 24. He's given a parable, okay? And then he's going to give the answer to the parable, or description. So it says, Yahushua Jesus put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in the field. But while people were sleeping, the enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, then went away. Now, just so you know, I'm not a farmer, but I've heard this. There's, when wheat sprouts, there's something else that this is calling a weed. I think it's called darnel, that grows up alongside of it that looks just like wheat. And you won't know the difference between the two until harvest time, because the wheat fills up with grain, the darnel does not. And so when the wind's blowing, the darnel blows over, or the wheat blows over, the darnel stays because it's not as heavy. And that's how you know what is good and what is bad. I might have that wrong, so correct me if I do, but that's kind of the premise. All right. So when the wheat sprouted and formed heads of grain, the weeds also appeared. Again, they looked similar. The owner's servants came to him and said, Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where have the weeds come from? He answered, An enemy has done this. The servants asked him, When do you want us to go and pull them up? But he said, No, because if you pull up the weeds, you might uproot some of the wheat at the same time. Let them both grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time, I will tell the reapers to collect the weeds first. Collect the weeds first. And tie them in bundles to be burned, but to gather the wheat into my barn. Then he puts forth another parable. So we're going to go down to verse 36. Now, here's another thing. A lot of people don't realize Jesus always spoke in parables. He had to. Verse 34 says, All these things Yahushua Jesus said to the crowds in parables. Indeed, he said nothing to them without using a parable. This was to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet. I will open my mouth in parables. I will say what has been hidden since the creation of the universe. So we can't take everything he says literal. It's all symbolism. It all means something, okay? Just a little side fact. All right, so going to verse 36 now of Matthew 13. Then he left the crowds and went into the house. His Talmudim, disciples, approached him and said, Explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field. He answered, The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, him. The field is the world. As for the good seed, these are the people who belong to the kingdom, the ones that accept him. And the weeds are the people who belong to the evil one. There's a question there of the, you ever looked into the serpent seed? Might be something to look into. The enemy who sows them is the adversary. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send forth his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom, which means his kingdom's on earth, because they're getting out of his kingdom, all the things that cause people to sin, and all the people who are from Torah, from the law. So he's collecting the weeds first. So not the ones that are left. And they will throw them into the fiery furnace where people will wail and grind their teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears, let him hear. First the weeds are taken, just like in the Psalms. The bad people, the evil people were taken. Just like in this, two men are lying in a bed, or two people are lying in a bed. One's taken, the other one's left. Matthew 13 clearly shows the ones that are taken first are the wicked. We are caught up. The wicked are destroyed. That's the resurrection. There is no rapture. There's no 7-year period. Daniel does not speak of one. Messiah fulfilled all of the 70 weeks of Daniel, because that's what the whole 70 weeks was about. Rebuilding the temple, and when Messiah is going to show up and be cut off. That's the 70 weeks of Daniel. All of these verses that people say are rapture verses are the resurrection. I don't know how else to say it. It's the resurrection. I'm going to go back to Corinthians. Or is it 2 Corinthians 15? No. 1 Corinthians 15. He gives the whole thing to us. Because he's talking about this. So, all right. Let me go through. Where am I going to start? All right. 35 I'm going to start at. But someone will ask, in what manner are the dead raised? What sort of body do they have? Stupid. When you sow a seed, it doesn't come alive unless it first dies. Also, what you sow is not the body that will be, but a bare seed of, say, wheat or something else. But Elohim, God, gives it the body he intends for it. And to each kind of seed, he gives its own body. Not all living matter is the same living matter. On the contrary, there is one kind of human beings, another kind of living matter for animals, another for birds, another for fish. Further, there are heavenly bodies and earthly bodies. But the beauty of heavenly bodies is one thing, while the beauty of earthly bodies is something else. The sun has one kind of beauty, the moon another, and stars yet another, which means the sun is not a star. Thank you very much. Indeed, each star has its own individual kind of beauty. So it is with the resurrection of the dead, not the rapture, the resurrection of the dead. When the body is sown, it decays. When it dies, right? When it is raised, it cannot decay. When sown, it is without dignity. When raised, it will be beautiful. When sown, it is weak. When raised, it will be strong. When sown, it is an ordinary human body. When raised, it will be a body controlled by the Spirit. If there is an ordinary human body, there is also a body controlled by the Spirit. So other translations will say a physical body and a glorified body. In fact, the Tanakh, the Old Testament, says, so Adam, the first man, became a living human being, a living soul, but the last Adam has become a life-giving spirit. Note, however, that the body from the Spirit did not come first, but the ordinary human one. The one from the Spirit comes afterwards. The first man is from the earth, made of dust. The second man is from heaven. People born of dust are like the man of dust, and people born from heaven are like the man from heaven. And just as we have borne the image of the man of dust, so also we will bear the image of the man from heaven. Let me say this, brothers. Flesh and blood cannot share in the kingdom of Elohim, God, nor can something that decays share in what will not decay. Look, I will tell you a secret. Not all of us will die, but we will all be changed. We will take but a moment, the blink of an eye, at the final shofar, the final trumpet. How many trumpets are in Revelation? 7. Oh, probably when all of that's done. For the trumpet, the shofar, will sound, and the dead will be raised to live forever, and we too will be changed. For this material, which can decay, must be clothed with imperishability. This which is mortal must be clothed with immortality. When what decays puts on imperishability, and what is mortal puts on immortality, then the passage in the Tanakh, the Old Testament, will be fulfilled. Death is swallowed up in victory. Death, where is your victory? Death, where is your sting? So, remember, he said I'm talking about the resurrection. He's not talking about a rapture. Okay? These are the verses. Please, if I'm in error, and I know I'm not, but if you think I'm in error, show me a verse that proves a rapture where we go to heaven for 7 years and then Jesus comes back and returns. For who? That's the other thing I always found funny about the rapture. They say that the Spirit's taken out of the way in order for Satan to rule for 7 years. Well, if the Spirit's not there, who's getting saved? Because you need the Spirit to get saved. And how is it that we have all these believers on the planet now and we can't get the whole world saved, and yet you take all the believers off the planet and somehow people that know nothing about the Bible are somehow going to get all these people saved? It doesn't make any sense. And here's the other thing that's never made sense. If you really get your body, if the rapture happens and we go up to heaven and we're in the presence of God, we're in the presence with Jesus, we see the Creator, and we're in paradise, right? And then he's going to take us out of that to go live on earth for 1,000 years? What? That's not better. Why would he take us back to a place that's not as good when we're already there in the presence in our spiritual bodies and stuff? The rapture doesn't make any sense when you really stop and think about it logically. When you look at all these verses that show it's the resurrection, I don't know how else to say it, people. There's no rapture. It's only the resurrection. You need to teach it properly. We don't go to heaven. We stay here on the earth. We live here. So it says that he takes us in the clouds, yes. But then we stay here on earth. We come back down on earth. Okay? It's how it is. And then Satan's bound for 1,000 years. At the end of that, he is allowed to go and deceive the nations. There's a lot of stuff I'm not familiar or not sure about because Satan's season comes into that. But because I don't know how long that period is. But it's all here on earth. And then when everything's done, and he destroys Satan. He throws everybody, destroys, locks Satan up forever, just throws him into the lake of fire. Then he creates a new heaven and a new earth. We were designed for earth. We weren't designed for heaven. We were always supposed to be here. Whether it's the old earth and the new earth, we're always going to be that. New Jerusalem's coming down out of heaven to be on earth. You're going to want to be up in heaven? New Jerusalem's here. Father's going to dwell here. The whole point was always for earth to be a place that he could dwell with us. That's why he created it. If he was only wanting us to be in heaven with him, why create earth at all? Just create us in heaven. Let us be with you in heaven. So, again, none of that has ever made any sense to me. If you can clear it up for me and show me where I'm in error, please do. With that, I'm going to say good night and good day and all of that. Please like, subscribe, share the show, leave a comment, and have a blessed day.